had done after 24 responses. So it looks like we're a mix of people that want to learn a little bit more about how to improve oral presentations, and then you're expecting one in the next 6 months. So both of you are in the right spot for sure. I'm stoked to have you, and we can get going. So real quick before, sorry. There we go. All right, before I move forward, our next webinar, we like to promote our next webinar during our previous webinar, and that's Pitch Like a Pro. It's matchmaking at Navy Gold Coast. I would encourage you to consider joining this webinar, even if you're not going to Navy Gold Coast, because they do spend a lot of time on how to have great interactions with prime contractors, subcontractors, teammates, that kind of thing. And it's also a good primer for any event that you might be going that has matchmaking. Alexis Romero and Mel run that. They do a great job with it. Until today, it was the most signed up for webinar we have. And I have a feeling she's going to take a challenge on that one. So with that, a little bit about me. My name's Jeff Everage. If you don't know me, if your boss told you to come, I'm the founder of a company, Trident Proposal Management. And I'm a veteran, been coaching oral presentations for a long time, something like 14, 15 years, well over 100 of these coached, literally thousands of coaching sessions completed, tons of experience. And what I've built along with Alexis and Chris is an approach to doing these oral presentations that really work across any kind of presentation, and we'll talk about that toward the end. A quick plug for my company. It's Trident Proposal Management. We're full service business development firm for government contractors. Our bread and butter work, the stuff that we do day to day, is managing, writing, compliance checks, and color team reviews and pricing support for written proposals. And we also come in and coach the oral presentations. So it's literally across the board, any support you need. 3 differentiators. One is we hire military spouses. Morgan Over, who's on the call and supporting me here, is one of our military spouses. Because we hire military spouses, many of them veterans, they move around and they move overseas. And so we were able to provide 24/7 support because we have US citizens in other time zones able to do compliance checks overnight, tech edits, help manage proposals, write proposals at almost any time of day. We have really high quality services as proven by what we call our TPS report, our Trident Performance Survey. Many of you on the call have probably actually filled one of those out. 4.96 out of 5 stars. We've hundreds of these now. It's not a fluke. 80% of our clients are repeat customers, which is amazing. And that's, I tell my team the best possible feedback you can get is get hired again. And then confidence in your bid. Last year, I think we submitted 122 proposals or helped with or supported for our clients. We do so many proposals. We put together a high quality product, including the orals coaching part of it. You can count on that. With that, talk a little bit about Trident Resources for orals coaching. And this will be the last of the plugs for the company. We have 3 coaches, 2 senior and 1 mid. So I learned everything I know from a gentleman named Chris Pierce 13 years ago. He had already coached maybe 80 or 90 proposals at that time, had a very high win rate. He needed someone else to go to for orals coaching. So he brought me in, taught me his trade as he was moving up senior partner at the firm he was with. And then Alexis Romero, she is joined us from another company where she coached every single one of their presentations, and she has a PhD and has a ton of presentation experience herself. And then there's me for the last 13 and a half, 14 years. I've been coaching orals, and this is this presentation is really the culmination of me figuring out the steps to produce a great outcome. Now, when it comes to oral specifically to proposal presentations, we have the 3 services on the right of the slide. And just know that it's not just the coaching part. Morgan is an expert at being a deck boss and putting together decks. We have graphics people, and we have anything you need from a presentation perspective. So please call us if you need some support. And now let's get to the actual point of this presentation. Take a breath. How to develop compliant, compelling government contracting proposal presentations without wasting time and energy on activities that don't help you win. And that's the point, this is a hard process. It takes a ton of work. Let's be as efficient as possible, and let's go in an order that supports the next step. Now, with that said, I just want to talk a little bit about why oral presentations have come up in our industry. I think, in talking to a few contracting officers, they actually don't love orals. I say in the title, the contracting officers love orals. They really don't. They're kind of a pain. They have to reserve conference rooms and get people to reserve time, and they have to bring people in and badge them and all these things. But why they love oral presentations is because they're really hard to fake. You can write a written response and, maybe not lie, but you can stretch your capability. It's hard to differentiate written responses sometimes. You can't fake live people in a virtual or in a live room, like in an in-person space. You can't fake that. You can't fake that expertise. So it allows for the ability to grade the actual people that will work on the contract. It allows for subjective evaluation. Incumbents, many of the orals that I coach are incumbent recompetes. So I'm helping the incumbent stay on the contract. And what we learned is that the fact that the output of an oral presentation to the government is their notes. And if they know, like, and trust you, they're going to be able to put a lot more in those notes. And so it's a little bit more subjective than objective. And that means that even though it's subjective and they can choose who they want, it's a little bit harder to protest as well. And the evaluation team gets that direct interaction with your team. And all this just really begs the question, are you going to be ready to do your absolute best in that direct interaction that may be the only thing that decides the contract? With that said, if you've been in any of my kickoff presentations where I coach a team, one of the first thing I talk about is what government proposal presentations really are. Now, we all know them as typical technical and management solutions. Most oral presentations or proposals require a tech approach and a management approach. Why this is the first thing and not what they really are is that technical and management approaches tend to be table stakes. Let me explain table stakes, because you may not know. In poker, many games of poker, you have to put a bet before you even get your first cards. And so that's table stakes. Everyone puts in a bet, don't even know what your hand's going to be. And I like to think of that as well as your tech and management solution. So what you're going to do and how you'll do it is typically an industry standard process that everyone uses. It's PMBOK, it's PMP, it's Agile, Safe Agile. It's these processes that we all know. I can go to ChatGPT and I can literally ask them, how would what's a good government management approach for this sort of scope? And it'll just give me the same old stuff. And so, yeah, government proposal presentation needs to have a good technical approach and a good management approach. Yes, for sure. That's really not the point. The bigger purpose is it's a high stakes sales pitch. You're convincing the government to spend millions and millions of dollars on you. The stakes are super high. People's jobs are on the line in some cases. And then it's a group job interview. They're looking at you individually as you present. Is this a person I want to work with? And then they're looking at you collectively. Are you working together as a team? Do you know, like, and trust each other? We'll go into this particular dynamic in some of the later steps. And then finally, it's an infomercial. And I love this analogy that you don't see infomercials as much anymore, but it used to be on cable TV. Every once in a while, an hour-long TV show to sell a blender would come up. It's called an infomercial. And the infomercial used one particular tool that I teach, which is feature, function, benefit. And I just add one more thing, a result, or where I've done it before. And so from the perspective of a buyer, your technical solution needs to have features that function a certain way, that benefit them, that give them results, and that you need to prove that you can do those results through your experience. And so in a way, we're selling products, but we're also selling people. And so that's what, when an evaluator comes in, yeah, they're going to be thinking tech and management solution. That's what they need to provide me. But they're also doing this, also these other things that are happening behind the scenes. And so part of this 9-step approach is to make sure that you're ready to do all four. And it begs the question, right? If your team only has one shot to get it right, and it's millions of dollars of contract value per minute, right? Are you fully ready to take full advantage of the opportunity you have to literally talk directly to the evaluators and to win that contract? This millions of dollars per minute is something I learned from Chris Pierce early on. In every first meeting, he would always get the contract value and the number of minutes of the presentation and divide and a number of usually millions or tens of millions of dollars per minute that's on the line, and people's jobs. Very high stakes. So with that, I do want to make one commitment to you, promise to you, that first, you have to have people that, and we'll talk about this in step 2, you have to have the right people. You have to have people to meet the requirements and have the right experience. But if you have that right people with the right experience, and you give them the right training and practice, the right rehearsals, the right coaching, then I'm telling you, any team can present a great proposal presentation and get a great outcome. Like any team. And just so you know, I've coached 4-star admirals. I've coached prior NSA agency leaders. I've coached 2-star generals, like lots of VPs. And I've coached technical people that never present. I coached one person that stuttered. And all of them did a great job. Why? Because they got the right training, they got the right practice, they did the right level of rehearsal, they were coached, and they were ready, and what I call beyond ready. All right, so with that, what is government proposal presentation mastery 9-step proven process? So I call this GPPM for short. And what are the 9 steps? Decode the RFP. Do you know everything that's required of you across all sorts of categories? Step 2 is design effective training plan. Do you have a plan, and do you have that scheduled, and does everybody know the plan? 3, assemble the winning team. Do you have the right people, and do you have the right group of people? 4, craft the persuasive messaging that will win this. Do you know the customer? Do you know the competitors? And do you know yourself well enough to be able to say what will win? I love 4 is like, I think 4, people call 4 my superpower. I love 4. Step 5, develop RFP response strategies. This is something that people don't do. This is something that I have to stop everyone, take them a step back and go, okay, how are we going to respond? What solutions do you need to build? What caucuses, what kind of a caucus do we have to do? Are we doing Q&A? Like, we need to think through our strategy to respond before we start practicing. Then you have to do the solution development. This is so important. You need to know the right solution and what goes into the solution. So it's not just table stakes tech and management. Present as one team. That's not just you as an individual presenting, but that's the dynamics that happen between you. Rehearse beyond ready. That's getting to the point where every time you present, you just crush it. Like, I like there's a quote, I think it might've been John Wooden that said it, but the difference between an amateur and a professional is an amateur practices until they can do it once well, and a professional practices until they can't do it wrong. And then prioritize peak performance. Are you going into that government conference room to present at your absolute peak? Or are you burnt out and you're at your trough? So, hey, Morgan, would you please put up the second poll for us? We have 66 people, moving for 66 responses. So this poll, if I remember correctly, is how you feel about proposal presentations. And all you have to do is just what comes up when you think about having to do all these steps and having to present for millions of dollars sometimes to keep your current job as the incumbent. How does it make you feel? And engaged, nervous. I'll just say excited. Oh, my response didn't hit. Yeah, a lot of work, overwhelmed, work in progress, for sure. Yeah, yeah, great opportunity, challenging. That's a word I really want people to hold on to is the challenge of this because it brings out the best in people. Not confident, totally get that. Angst, yes, yes, yes. Prefer to memorize. Yeah, love those scripts, don't we? COVID gave us this chance to get really good at reading scripts. Those days are over, I'm afraid. Crunch for time. Oh, heck yeah. Excitement and anxiety. It turns out, you guys, there's these brain scans that they did where they had people get excited and they had people be anxious. And it turns out it's the same brain activated. It's just a different story. Like literally, you are excited and anxious in the same part of your brain. It's just how you're thinking about it that makes it excited versus anxious. It's like it blew me away when I read that. Mm. So I just want to point out that the big word in the middle is overwhelmed, and then stress, nervous, and anxious. And here's what I absolutely love about being beyond ready is that when you're beyond ready, those things melt away. You've met the challenge, you've practiced enough, and you're absolutely ready to go. And you know it, you have that level of confidence, and you show up and you kick butt. And that's what my teams report. And I guess I just like, it's what I love about coaching because they come back so excited. All right, 45 responses. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and let's get started. So I'm going to go literally step by step through every single one of these steps. I'm going to go pretty quick and end with one, maybe two best practices. This is certainly not the entirety of the step, for sure. There's more, but this gives you the high tops of what's important to do in that step. So the first one is Decode the RFP. And what I find so interesting with the teams I coach is that even the seasoned people that are used to reading RFPs don't always see everything that's involved with the oral presentation itself. And so I first tell them, where do they need to look? Because it's not just the requirements, the section L, the evaluation criteria, the section N, that's where everyone looks. Q&A, if there's a really long Q&A, like if like a lot of questions were submitted, there's going to be answers that change the way the orals happens or confirms things that were ambiguous. So checking that Q&A, very important. There's almost always some sort of separate instruction. And then the down select notice, if you're down select to orals, that will have something as well. And so what I'm telling you here is that not only are you looking at the RFP, but there's other things you're looking at and they come in over time. And the things you need to look for in the middle, you have to know how many presenters can you bring? Are there key personnel that you must bring and what the requirements are? Do you have a static presentation, a caucus and response, Q&A, any mix of those? Do you have a tech demo? The form of the presentation matters a lot. Timing of it matters. The requirements, the evaluation criteria, logistics, very important to think through logistics really early on. If it's an in-person, then everyone needs to travel to that site, be there the night before or a few days before to practice. And then the timing, and I'll talk about timing here when we talk about the plan in step 2. Critical information, the two things that you absolutely have to know as you decode the RFP are the specific topics, those requirements that you must talk about, and the grading criteria that will have you be graded exceptional or or not good. I don't even know what the low level was because I never even look at it. I always look at what does it take to be exceptional. And a best practice here is for first, everyone needs to be decoding the RFP on their own, but the coach or the lead, whoever the lead is, needs to build a rules of engagement briefing or document. Like I make it a Word document, not a PowerPoint, so it's easy to edit and it's easy to go back to. And you want to have that up all the time. And you want to actually do what I call a rules of engagement briefing really early with everyone so they can understand what is expected of them, what the requirements are, how they'll be graded, get everybody started on the right foot. So once you've decoded the RFP, it's time to design an effective training plan. And good news is that we're going to give you our template for a training plan that you can just download and use if you self-coach. First step for the training plan, though, is to establish really clear accountability and roles. Very important to have a clear role, and the coaching role, whether you hire a coach like me or Chris or Alexis, or you have someone on the team coaching, that role of coach who's leading the training needs to be the first role that you set. So this accountability allows everyone to understand what's expected of them right away. Then from there, you want to set the timing. There's almost always a dance of trying to figure out when you think the presentation is going to be. And I like to not be, like, you can be really risk averse and say, oh, it might be 5 days from now. Like it's a running 5-day period. And that's impractical. Like, and the government doesn't act that fast typically. So what you want to do is think, okay, this is like the most likely day, or this week is the most likely week. Sometimes they tell you the week, and you want to plan back from what's most likely, not the earliest possible. And then if you need to, you adjust. And by the way, there's always exceptions to this rule. Bottom line is you get that date that you're targeting to peak at. And then you create your plan. The plan that we have has 4 phases. It includes planning and training and content development, individual and section practices, whether you have caucus or tech demo or Q&A or just static. And then you have dress rehearsals. From a best practice perspective, best practice is don't recreate the wheel. Instead, just go ahead and download our training template. I use this every single time I do orals, and you're getting the one I get, or the one I use, except it's just more branded. Then I stripped out the branding, the Trident branding, and then you'll see that it has 4 phases. It has every training that you need to do, all the meetings you need to have, all the different content that you need to develop, and then you delete what you don't need, and you schedule and you plan for what you do need. So that's your, yeah. And hey, Morgan, if you could drop the link in the chat, or if you guys take a picture, and you can also go to our website and get that. So I was gonna show it to you at this point, but I am running a little bit behind on time. So I'm gonna not show you the training plan and keep moving. All right, so step 3. And by the way, if you have my email, you can email me and I'll just email you the template, no big deal. So step 3 is now it's time to assemble your team. And what's really interesting is when I'm hired, usually the proposal manager is in the midst of that. And the proposal manager, capture manager really has highly prioritized building that winning team. They haven't done the ROE. They haven't thought through their training plan at all. They're just trying to think people. And it's important to do, and you certainly don't have to, this doesn't have to be step 3. It can be step 1 as well. It needs to be happening. But if you don't do that ROE shred, then you're like, if you don't do you don't really truly understand the requirements, it's hard to pick the people, is what I'm saying. So the candidate evaluation is the first step. And what you want to do is take everyone that you think would be a good fit for this and put them in a matrix. And you want to make sure that, do they meet the requirements for the role? If they're key personnel, do they need PMP and have it or not? Do they need certain amount of education, certain certifications? There are requirements for key personnel that are really a yes or no. Yeah, you might exceed, but we need to hit the floor no matter what. Do they have the relevant experience that the customer would expect? Do they have availability? This is something that shows up so frequently. If you build your winning team without doing your ROE brief, right, to let everybody know what's going on, then you're not going to know that you've built a team of people that has someone that can't actually do the presentation for whatever reason. So getting all that information exposed so you can figure out availability to build this evaluation matrix is so important. Insider knowledge, relationships, those are key. Do they know the evaluation board? Do they know the client? And then background check. Background check is literally just, have they done anything to upset the client? Do they have a ghost or a skeleton in the closet? Those are the things you want to think about on an individual level. And then you want to think about them from a team composition perspective. So now you're thinking, okay, do we have the entire scope, the entire performance workstation statement covered by this team? We either know the evaluators or we have an idea who the evaluators are, the people in the room, the technical evaluation board, or the SSEB sometimes it's called. Do we have people in the room that know them so that those relationships we can use to our advantage? Do we have stakeholder relationship for the client? So, if the client is a Navy command, maybe you want a NAVWAR stakeholder relationship that's important to that Navy command. Those stakeholder relationships can be great additions to your solutions to show how much more robust your solution is. Corporate experience, relevant experience, all those things, the corporate reach, that's important too. You want somebody that can literally stomp their feet and say, the buck stops with me. I'm the VP, I'm the president, I'm the owner, or whatever. The buck stops with me. I will make sure I do everything in my power to give this team what they need to succeed. So with that, you have now a great matrix with your core team and then your backups, and you've covered everything you need to cover. And a best practice is, now that you have that core team, re-articulate the expectations and the schedules early and often. It's all about that availability. If they're not available to train and rehearse, if they're not available to actually do the presentation, you need to know early. And things like weddings, I don't know, people are hiding medical conditions, not hiding, but not telling you about medical conditions. There's all sorts of things that come up that once we have the team and we do the ROE brief, we figure it out. All right, so step 4, craft persuasive messaging. Let me get rid of these. Got a whole bunch of little windows up. So crafting persuasive messaging. People tell me that I'm really good at it. I'm not exactly sure how I earned that reputation, but I really, really do enjoy figuring out what's different, what's special, what sets us apart, and hammering that throughout the presentation, repeating it over and over and over again. And so with that, wrong screen. The first thing I do, and if you've ever been coached by me, you've been in one of these customer analysis meetings. And so the first thing we do is this deep dive. What are the things that the customer needs to hear from you for you to be relevant? The hot buttons. What are the third rails? Things you don't want to say that'll just upset them. Who are the people on the evaluation board and what do they care about? And if you don't know who those people are, what are avatars? Like, what are some placeholders of the people that you think are going to be on it? And what do we need to say to them? If they're from a branch or a division or a particular part, a particular command, what do they care about? And then you want to look at the customer as a whole. What are the organizational priorities? What are the key milestones coming up near term and far term, like in far away? And then what are the goals? What are they up to as a command or as a unit or as an agency or whatever entity you're presenting to? This deep dive into the customer then is going to really inform us in how to talk about our solution. Then we want to really look closely and research our competitors. The teams that I coach are typically well captured, and usually we know who the competitors are. But that list of names of competitors isn't enough. We need to know, what are their strengths? What are they going to come to the government and say they do better and different? Who are their teammates? Do they have incumbency or not? Do they have pseudo incumbency, adjacent incumbency? Like, are they next door to the client and they've been knocking on that door for the last 2 years saying, hey, we want to help with this contract too? And then most importantly, do they have any failures? If they're the incumbent and we think the client's looking for something new, we want to know, how did that incumbent fail? That's a ghost or a skeleton in the closet. And then with that, we want to look in that mirror. We want to self-evaluate. And so now we're talking, what is it that we do differently? What are the experiences that matter to the customer? What are the things we can talk about that ghost the competition? Now we can dive, since we know the customer and we know the competition and what they might say about us and what they're going to say about them, now we can start crafting great messaging about us that then takes us to another level of messaging and differentiates us even more. And the other thing too on this is we really need to know if we have any skeletons in the closet. Do we have any people or situations where we failed? A best practice is to do this customer analysis session really early. Clients often so usually oral presentations happen after a down select. And so we'll do this, I'll come in and we'll do this after the main proposal, written proposal has been submitted. And the client will come up to me and go, hey, Jeff, I really wish we had done this earlier with you because we would have used a lot of this information in our written proposal. So you really want to think, how early can you do this? And you might even do it twice. Like there's no time wasted in this thinking through of your messaging. Now, step 5 is develop the RFP response strategies. This is a time when people are like, okay, we've got our outline, we've got our messaging, we've got everything ready to write. I'm like, just take one step back, just one step back. Because the point of the response strategy is to really think through what is the end result of the presentation and how do we make sure that we're preparing effectively for that end result, that presentation that we're going to do. And the structure of it, whether it's a static presentation, is it some sort of Q&A, is it a tech demo, is it caucus response, that structure matters a lot. You have to really think about how you want to, what's your strategy for responding to these different structures. It starts with a really strong outline. So they're going to tell you the requirements of this particular proposal. You're going to get a scope of work. This presentation, you're going to scope of work. We want to build an outline, and then we want to determine what are the solutions that we have to do really deep dives in. And then once we know the solutions we need to develop, we also need to think, okay, is there anything else we have to prepare for? If it's a static presentation and that's it, nothing else, then it really stops there. But if there's Q&A, caucus response, scenarios, any of that, you need to start developing practice questions, scenarios, and anything that you need to rehearse and challenge the team to really exercise them on those other parts. And then once you have the first 3, now you can take those win themes, the messaging from step 4, and you put them into the solutions. You think about how they'll act inside the scenarios. Where do they align in the outline? And then from there, you can actually think, okay, holistically, are we able to, in our static presentation, our caucus response, and our response to questions, are we able to tell the client all our different differentiators, all our win themes, enough times to make sure that they score? So this is a holistic look at solutions and how you use them based on the structure of the proposal. And that best practice of developing questions and scenarios with increasing levels of difficulty, I love caucus and response. I love Q&A. It makes it for a much more challenging rehearsal. And what I always endeavor to do is to practice so many questions and scenarios that the team literally goes into the government site and goes, wow, that was a softball. That was so easy. We'd already done it before. It was easier than anything we'd practiced. So make sure that they're increasing levels of difficulty and that they're covering that entire scope of work. Cool, so now we're into developing solutions that score. You have that list of all the different requirements. You have the outline, you have scenarios and questions, you've got everything, you've got your strategy for moving forward. Now you need to know what you're going to say during the presentation. And I'm not saying that you have to wait till step 6 to develop solutions. Most likely, you've already developed it in your written response, if there is a written response along with the orals. But this is where you can get super serious about it because you have all the information you need to do it. And so you have to develop that robust technical and management solution. So important to have a really good one that's tailored to the client and is thinking about the milestones and the goals and the organizational priorities of the client, of the government customer, right? So the robust solution isn't just your PMBOK approach to management. Is thinking through everything that they need to do in the future. It's future processing and telling them how your management approach with your people and your experience is going to take care of all that in the future. Same with technical. From there, you want to weave in the evaluation criteria. A really common set of 3 things that the government's looking for is, first is, do you understand the requirement? Second is, do you have a sound approach? And third is, are you going to have a high likelihood of successful work without government intervention? So those 3 are those are really common in proposals that I'm seeing lately. And so you're going to need to weave in that evaluation criteria into the solution. You're going to need to add, as part of your solution, your understanding. You're going to think about what makes it sound, like what makes it practical, and you're going to think about how you're managing and mitigating risks so that success is likely. And then finally, you want to get the examples, the stories, the personal expertise. You want to embed those into the solutions as well. So it's not just your tech and management approach. It includes evaluation criteria, it includes all the win themes and differentiators, and includes all the strengths, all the examples, all the experience you have as well. That creates a solution that will actually win, that will score. Best practice here, if I can get to it, is stay consistent with your written proposal and check compliance frequently. With oral presentations, it's really easy to get out of sync with your written proposal, and it's really easy to get to lose compliance with even a small change. So you got to really think through, okay, I'm deleting something, I'm changing something. Does that impact the completeness of the response? Am I now changing something so that we're not consistent with that tech approach? Think about that. That's really important. That's why I have that rules of engagement document up all the time, because I'm always going back to it, doing compliance, checking evaluation criteria, that kind of thing. All right, we're on the home stretch, 7, 8, and 9. I do have a bonus step 10 as well to plant the seed. Hope you stay. The 7 is present as one team. Now we're talking about the things that make people anxious. Like this is part of what makes presentations so challenging, and group presentations even more challenging. And then group presentations when $1 million and jobs are at stake, even more challenging and anxious and overwhelming, and all the things that we said in that word cloud. And so first, the team needs to know, like, and trust each other. And remember, like, I want the client to know, like, and trust you. I do, right? That's really important to me. And remember, back in step 2, we talked about what are criteria for a great person to be on the team, and that evaluator relationship is really important. But as important, maybe more important, is during this presentation, during this process that you're going through in front of the government, do you show up like you look like you know, like, and trust each other, or do you show up as a bunch of strangers? And so part of presenting as one team is that camaraderie that builds with the challenge that you're facing and all the rehearsals and practicing together. Second is individual section development. This is where this is not just the individual practicing their part, but this is thinking through also, like, part by part. And this is also thinking through how you're going to caucus if you have to respond to a scenario. So this individual section development is, what are the parts that you need to know how to say, right? And then how are you going to include individually and include everyone else in the room, and even people that aren't in the room that are on your team, you're bringing them into your presentation. So you have to think individually, how do I make it a one team that knows, likes, and trusts each other? And then at that point, the group dynamics start to really, really play. And group dynamics from a technique perspective are those transitions from speakers, the references back and forth, the references to each other's experience. Something that I like to use is third-party validation. It's one thing to introduce yourself and to talk about yourself. It's a whole nother level of influence when someone says, this person's the expert at that. She wrote the book. He's my go-to person for this particular expertise, right? That third-party validation is very, very effective. And we want to pull that in. It makes us look like one team. And then the shared experience. If you've worked together, if you're incumbents and you've all been working together for the last 5 years, We're going to talk about that a lot so that we look like a cohesive team. And a best practice here, there's so many, I could go on and on about best practices around how to be one team, but one thing for sure is you have to talk to each other. And as you're preparing your speaker points, as you're thinking about transitions, as you're talking about things that maybe aren't your expertise, but someone else's, definitely get them in a one-on-one with you and just start learning about each other, riffing off of each other to figure out how to make a great transition. Okay, step 8, rehearse beyond ready. And I love that, beyond ready. My favorite, best possible outcome is when a team goes, wow, that was easy. They come back, big smiles, going, wow, that was easy. We were so ready. Love that. And it starts with individual practice. I have a dear friend of mine, Brad Ramber. He's a professional saxophone player, among other things. And he talks about practice versus rehearsal. And the reason you practice individually is so that during rehearsal, the rest of the team isn't standing around waiting for you to catch up. So that individual practice is so important. And then with oral presentations like this that are coached, it's really good to get a one-on-one session, not necessarily with the coach, with me, but with someone that can help you work on your messaging, refine your presentation, work on your speaker bullets, those sorts of things. And then you practice in parts. Now, this is where you might just be management approach, just part of the tech. You get just a few transitions going. You want to like build up to full rehearsals. Practicing in parts is also if you have a static presentation, a technical demo, and then a scenario and response, which is a big day. We would get the static presentation practice first, do the tech demo till it's like 80% at least. We'd work that caucus and response separately, and then we would put it all together in a full dress rehearsal. I personally think full dress rehearsals, if everybody's really ready, you can get away with 3. It's typically 5 that has people peeking out. And a best practice here is for the full dress rehearsals and for the parts, practicing the parts, is to have a knowledgeable TEB there with you as the coach or there with you as a team to give you technical feedback, messaging feedback, and corporate experience feedback. And then finally, 9, prioritizing peak performance. So often I hear horror stories of how teams either under-prepared, so they're just more ready, or they slogged it out, practiced till the very last minute, and went in at a trough instead of a peak. And what you want to do is you want to practice and get better and better and better, and then hit the government site and do the government presentation at your very peak. And there's 3 parts to this. Well, first is make sure the logistics are dialed in. The last thing you need is some sort of strange, unexpected happening or someone not understanding how the morning of the presentation goes. Someone's late, someone's like not dressed right. Just have all the logistics dialed in and communicated early. Manage your risk proactively. If you have to go to client site and everyone's traveled somewhere, get a hotel that's walking distance. So you don't even have to worry about traffic or getting a car. There's also, you have to like look at the logistics to think about the risks. Doubling up on laptops, if you're bringing a laptop, doubling up on a projector. Those are the things you can do to make sure that nothing surprises you. But the most important part of peak performance is self-care. And I would say the best practice really says it all. The afternoon before the actual day that you present with the government, let's take that off. And I mean, take it off, like don't be doing email at 10 p.m. Right? Don't go out to a heavy dinner because you're at a hotel and you're used to traveling and going out to nice restaurants. No, have a light dinner, drink some water, no like afternoon beer, and go to bed early. Get great sleep, wake up refreshed, and then have that peak experience. So those are the 9 steps. But I do want to tell you about a little bit of a Eureka moment that I had. And the Eureka moment was, I don't know, maybe I'd been coaching orals for 3 or 4 years. Chris had me shadow him for a year doing different proposals. And then now I was on my own and I was doing it. And I'd coached one I think, principal or VP at one of our clients a number of times, because she had a client that liked to do orals, and she was in charge of a team, and they would have to do orals like once a year, or a couple times a year even. And she then moved away, and I was walking through the halls of my client. I guess she had traveled back for some meeting, and she saw me walk in the halls, and she's like, "Hey, Jeff, come here, come here." And she pulled me in her like temporary office, and she's like, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you, because you have to understand that I use everything that you taught me in those trainings with my team. I teach my team those concepts, those techniques. I actually use them for regular old client presentations." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. You're an amazing presenter. You don't even need to be coached." And she's like, "No, really, it was so helpful. Thank you." And I said, "You're welcome." And I started to notice that frequently people were coming up to me, thanking me, that they had gone through something, like they really didn't want to present. They were super nervous. They'd never had this experience of presenting without like big anxiety. They'd never experienced what fully ready was, and they'd never used all these tools to influence and have higher impact, and to influence the retention, have people remember what they say. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And so 13, 14 years later, these situations have happened enough, and I've seen this transformation enough that I know that step 10 is really apply this everywhere. Like there's some things like my caucus process, the process of solving a problem quickly so that you can present, a high impact presentation. Yeah, sure, maybe that's not something you'd use everywhere, but most of the tools in this toolbox for oral presentations and these steps apply to your individual presentations. And they also can mean that you can now have the tools to bring in other people to present with you to the client, so you can take that next step of having multiple presenters. It means that your just everyday conversations that are important with people in your life can have higher impact and more influence. And so I just thought that seeing that transformation in people is just so cool. And so from that and from the just the perspective of how do I increase my impact on others, I'm building a training course. So this is going to be an online course, and if you could forgive me for just a couple of minutes of offering you something. And the whole point of the course is a couple of things. One is, when I have a team that's come in, I end up repeating myself a bunch and talking about concepts a bunch. So I'm thinking that I'm going to use this course. I'm going to assign videos, training videos, before they even come into my training, so that we all start on the same level, same sheet of music, if you will. Plus, if someone gets switched out, if someone has to leave the team and someone else comes in, I can get them up to speed quickly without spending, more time. I also want something that, like a training course that's going to go really deep into the 9 steps and Trident's training plan areas as well. So something that has this deep dive in the different steps. Again, so it's available offline when people need it. Sometimes Trident's client, I can't speak anymore. Sometimes Trident's clients can and do self-coach. Sometimes the bid isn't big enough. The importance of the bid doesn't allow for a large B&P budget, and they just need to do a presentation. And so I want to give them something so that they can not have to remember what I talked about and try to recreate it, that they can just go check the videos, see what applies to them, and get rolling. And most importantly, I'm making this training course so that anyone can access the content and use it to influence and impact people in your life, like all the presentations you do. So with that, move quickly. The beta is getting released over the next 90 days. I'll be releasing content every week or so for the next 90 days, and then it'll be complete. And the beta version is beta and a super low price, so that I can immediately have some of you hopefully just give me feedback, watch it, tell me what works, not what doesn't work. That's my hope anyway. This is the first time I've actually told anyone about the course, so I'm excited and nervous as well. It's going to have every step that we just talked about in detail, but it's also going to have very specific training topics that are short, so you can just go right to what you need help with right then. It's going to have the templates and the checklists, the training plan that you can download separately, but it's also going to have all the different accelerators we have for proposal presentations. And then two bonuses for sure. I've got a few others that I'm thinking about. But one is I wrote an ebook on confidence and mindset. It had like a really cheesy name. I think I called it How to Train Like a Navy SEAL for Proposal Presentations or something like that. But it's a confidence and mindset book or ebook. It's just, just a small one. And it's really tailored to presentations. And what I've noticed is that I'm coaching these concepts throughout. So I thought that'd be a nice bonus to add. And then you get a seat on our fast prop system as well. So Rebecca Whalen, our senior proposal manager, has built an e-learning course that literally teaches you how to manage a proposal, write a proposal, do compliance checks, tech edits. And the coolest part of this, I think, is that it has 2 mini courses in there. It has our compliance course and our high impact proposal writing course. And so those 2 are in high demand. People love those, love the fast prop system, and that's a bonus as well. And I'll just get to the price. I'm not exactly sure how many people I want on the beta as I'm releasing new content and exposing this to the world. But it's not only going to be available for the next few days. I did a deep dive into any courses, anything like this. Shipley has something that's over $2,000 and it's in person. There's a couple others out there that are very expensive. I'm pricing this as a steal at $497. You can get your money back anytime. And then one bonus is if you buy this, you automatically get this year, you automatically get a 2-hour coaching session with me that you can use for anything you want. So if you're self-coaching, you want help with that training plan, great. You want me to run a customer analysis, awesome. You want me to watch your presentation, give feedback, perfect. Like whatever you want it for. All right, and that being said, Morgan, are you there?
I am here.
I'm going to head over to Q&A. Do we have any questions? I don't see the poll. No questions. We only have 4 more minutes. Does anyone have any questions for me at all? You can put it in the Q&A or the chat. Morgan, do you see anything in the chat by chance?
I do not yet see any questions or
Cool.
in the Q&A or in the chat.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, with that, I'll wait 30 more seconds. Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Someone just said thank you to me through the chat. I don't know if the chat, we're kind of getting, oh, thank you. Yeah, great training. Awesome. Thank you. We're getting used to using this particular format for webinar. It's called Teams webinar. So it's, yeah, you're welcome, everybody. Thank you for the thank yous. I so appreciate it. Oh, yeah. And then I guess if you're interested, here's the QR code for Presentation Mastery. We'll also send out a link on how to buy it as well.